Yeah. So this is like we kind of touched this topic a bit, Scott, but this is more like it's very funny because with this whole new LLM and AI technology, there are some people who are, and there are some companies which are saying that you don't even need SDRs, like just fire everybody. We will do it for you, right? And on the other spectrum, you have people who are saying, oh, just use Chat GPT to do everything, right? Or Bard to do everything. And then what happens is one part, which is say, you don't even need SDRs, I think is fundamentally flawed
Mhm.
because then it is just enhancing more of bad behavior, which is like, okay, let me send 1 million more bad emails, right? Or spam emails. The second thing, which is like, okay, you can use Chat GPT to do research and do interesting things, and all of that is great, but it becomes more like an additional task that you have to do on top of the task that you are doing today, right? So one of the things is like, how do we think about tools which are coming in the space? How do we evaluate such tools? Because I'm pretty sure people here, they are hearing, one or two AI tools that can help them double their sales pipeline every day.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong.
I think so. It's funny you mentioned this because in the last this it died down a little bit in February, but for a couple months I was getting pitched multiple times a week by different AI startup founders. They're like, "Oh, look at my lookaliking tool," or "Look at my AI personalization tool," and I'd have a few conversations going back and forth, and I could usually tell like within 3 minutes if it was viable. And the thing that no one really gets is the inputs are really everything in AI, in my opinion. Like finding the magic prompt doesn't save you, right? The magic prompt just makes things a little bit easier, right? The magic prompt is basically processing. Prompt processes information. It's the inputs that give you stuff that works. And so, I had a couple companies pitching me company lookaliking tools, and I asked them what data points they were lookaliking off. And they're like, well, industry and company size. And I was like, okay, so what you're doing is you're acting as a data layer on top of an existing data provider with fundamentally flawed industry categorization data. Like you have basically 20% of what you need to determine if an account is a good fit. And you're basically lookaliking off a 20% of the less accurate, least relevant data points. This isn't going to work. So, and one of the reasons I thought was interesting with you is you guys took an approach where you're kind of scoring accounts and AI personalizing and building out prompt frameworks to write messaging. I thought that was really interesting because this is kind of the way you should do it. You gather all the signals, you index which signals are relevant to a value proposition. Like this is how the best sellers are already doing it. Like if you were to do a ride along with the best seller and they were to narrate their ride along, what are their inputs? Like that's kind of what you're looking for, right? What are the best sellers using as inputs? And I think that's going to be this AI companies. Everyone's a little reluctant to share this, but this is actually the easiest way for you to tell if someone is legit, is to figure out what inputs you're using. And the second thing to ask is what's the feedback loop? Because if you think about the AI SDR, like you can do things that optimize for reply. That is not going to create a good long-term North Star. Like you have to optimize ultimately for, I mean, at a high level, you optimize for pipeline created, but ultimately when you're doing anything revenue related, you have to optimize for customers that have a high lifetime gross profit that can be acquired quickly. Like that's a very high level esoteric. A lot of companies aren't thinking that way. So for instance, if I talk to a lookaliking tool and they aren't looking at net revenue retention, I realize, okay, this account planning approach is fundamentally flawed. They're going to miss out. Eventually, this model could be steered off course. So that's kind of what I would say is what are the inputs? What are the feedback loops? That's going to tell you if a tool, especially an AI tool, is good.
Yeah, what you're saying is if companies build AI tools that can automate outbound, then companies will also build AI that will in a way automate replies, and then basically AI playing with AI, and then no real like no real business is happening.
We're going to see the return of the gatekeeper. Someone's going. We don't have the incentives for it because the buyers are willing to dump a lot more money.
Yeah.
And into that right now. Like we don't really have a use case for. I think you need like a full-on AI secretary, but we're going to see the return of gatekeepers. Like AI gatekeepers are going to vet phone calls. AI gatekeepers are going to vet inboxes. So it's basically like telephone and selling in the 80s. Like that's going to happen eventually in our inboxes. And then the game will be probably like, what keywords do I need to use to get through this filter?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll also talk a little bit more about how best to use OpenAI and GPT, all these tools. We had also like a couple of people from OpenAI registered. If you're here, just raise your hand. But yeah, we'll also talk about some of those things if you have questions about that. Let's move on to our third topic.